Whew, okay, so apologies for the bit of downtime there, people. Since 1990 took so bloody long to make. Seriously, we're not going to be doing a top 10 for a little while here. I need a break. I figured, though, in the meantime, I'd make it up to the people who were presently at the $30 tier over on Patreon. I privately opened requests for them only, just as a nice way to say thank you for your patience and to help clear out a few more reviews for the year, but, oh dear. I don't know how to put this. I have a feeling that after this video, those lovely patrons, who I do appreciate for being so generous, please don't mistake me, I appreciate all of you, but y'all probably aren't going to be happy with me after this video, because a lot of the requests I ended up getting... Okay, can we just get the worst one out of the way first? Or at least the most painful one? Sleep token are a thing. I literally have no idea what else to call them. All of the members remain anonymous, they aren't very prolific, they haven't been around for very long, and they don't adhere to any specific kind of genre or make themselves easy for any kind of classification whatsoever. So literally... the only thing I can really say about them is they are, in fact, a thing. They exist. Existence out of 10 would exist again.
Oh, come on now, Crash. This band is shrouded in all kinds of mystery and cryptic imagery. There has to be something behind all this facade. You can at least take a stab at telling us what kind of music they make.
Well, okay... I'll try. Now, what kind of music do you think this implies? Do you have a guess? Well, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. 100% incorrect. No, I promise you, you're wrong. Shut up. Because unless you said pop shit, you weren't even close. Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. The music on offer here is... weirdly pop-centric. Or better said, it's pop more in that idea of what's popular in the greater pop sphere right now. So what does that mean? Lots of trap snares, lots of dozy, drugged-out sounding atmospherics, and oodles upon oodles of just... bleh. I'm serious, people. This is like... so many of the trends in pop I just do not like, all coming together in one weird little arena. This stuff sounds like if Post Malone were featuring on a Bring Me the Horizon cover of a late period Imagine Dragons song that was being produced by Travis Scott. Is something like this even in my jurisdiction? Man, the whole jurisdiction thing is stupid. I wish it wasn't a factor anymore. But yeah, this thing just has a lot of elements that are going on in the greater pop sphere right now that I just find absolutely tedious, and man, people, I'm sorry, but I just gotta be real with you, this album was terminally boring to me. I've said in the past, I'm not against these various things being used if it's used to create new and interesting music, or to at least put a unique spin on something else that's already going on. I won't say that what they're doing here isn't entirely unoriginal. They do have a strange talent with melody, and as a guy who's more than into his fair share of dreamy electro-pop, you know, there are elements to their sound that I do appreciate. They aren't unoriginal. I can at least give them that, but my god, it took me 3 tries to get through this thing back to front, and every single time I felt like I was just gonna fall asleep. It's a great thing I didn't listen to this album while driving. And for real, I just can't help but feel like all the trap and sound cloudy shit that's smeared all over this thing isn't going to date it horribly in the next 2 to 4 years when everyone gets sick of all this shit and the next big whatever comes along. It's not an offensive record, and I don't have anything against it on principle. But just, I have so little to say about this record that even talking about it makes my eyes glaze over. This album was like listening to an anecdote being told by the most boring person you've met at a party. The guy may be polite and well-behaved. I'm sure he's a decent enough fella, but I really just want him to finish up his fucking story so I can literally be anywhere else right now. Oh, dude, please, I gotta go, man. Can you just, how interesting, I gotta go. Sundowning gets 2.5. Oh, look at the times. Out of 5. Yep, it's a grindcore album, alright. No, it's a Patreon review. I have to at least try here. But, well, I mean, people, look at this. Do I need to say much else? One look at this cover, the band's logo, anything else, you know what you're getting yourself into here. It's gonna be dark, it's gonna be crazy, and like 99% of the words are gonna be completely unintelligible.
It doesn't matter, no one can understand what I'm saying anyway.
We've been here before, people, and Full of Hell are one of those grindcore bands that does tend to lean kind of heavy into the death metal slant of things, or at least that's what they've been up to recently. Hell, you could almost mistake this for a blackened genre if you weren't paying close attention to it. And well, again, what you see is what you get. It's loud, it's abrasive, and if you need your metal vocalists to
squeal, whee! Squeal, whee! Squeal louder, whee!
Well, here's your Huckleberry. But man, I don't know, that's basically all I have to say about it. It's a dark grindcore album. It's a very functional dark grindcore album, but that's kind of all it is. It doesn't break into any new territory, it doesn't wow, it doesn't surprise. Hell, if you're used to this genre, it might not even shock you. It's grindcore cola classic. It's rote. It's standard. I don't know, maybe it's just because I haven't been in much of a grindcore mood here lately. I don't know, it may just be me, but as basically decent and proficient as this album was, this just didn't do much for me. In researching the album's development, I found that it was the band's intention with this record to take elements from every record they'd ever made up to that point and bring a little piece of everything onto this one. The fact that even after they did, it still sounds like pretty much everything else they've done, I mean, you know, again, there's like nothing offensive here or anything, and if you're into this genre, it'll probably scratch an itch for you, but I don't know, personally, I'll stick with the new Venom Prison. Weeping Choir gets 3 bowls of plain vanilla ice cream out of 5. Okay, I need to instigate a new rule here. Bands that are like crazy small, like super duper, barely even existent in terms of hype, small, y'all can't request bands like that anymore. I didn't get a screenshot of it at the time, but when I first went to listen to this band, I had more listeners than they did on Spotify. And my music sounds like shit. It's not fair at all to bands like this that are barely starting out and hardly even have themselves, you know, established yet, to get put under the knife like this. Plus, I feel super particularly bad when the album I do end up talking about with a band this small doesn't give me much to talk about. It's not nice to pick on the little guys, especially when they're just trying to get started, but this was a Patreon request, so yeah, Pterodactyl problems. What do we got here? Well, to be honest, there is a bit of promise. The album does start off with a lot of energy and stomp. There's a bit of a classic rock vibe to them. Like, you can tell these guys have a pretty decent vinyl collection backing their sound up. They know how to wrangle together a thick set of riffs for verses, nice rising choruses, and even a few decent solos here and there. When they really want to, they can hammer out some pretty legit bangers here and there. I feel like that's probably where this band's biggest strengths lie, is in their heavy, sort of classic rock sound. It's not a strength they focus on for this record, though. About half the album is that old blues-tinged, ultra-heavy rock and roll, but a good half of the record is also dedicated to slower ballads and acoustic stuff, and, well, this is gonna sound weird, but with their vocalists' particular cadence, timbre, and singing style, they kind of sound like Blue October when they do that. Yeah, that was not something I saw coming when I dug up the singles. They try to incorporate some more jazzy and folky aesthetics on tracks like that, and again, it's not terrible. I definitely dig some Blue October. Foiled was my shit. That album will ruin a man. But wow, there is definitely a bit of sonic clash going on here. The slower stuff, especially when it's put alongside their heavier beats, just feel jarring and disjointed. Hell, on the band's website, they proudly wear all of their influences on their sleeve, but this record doesn't come off as like eclectic or genre bending. It feels like it kind of has a big fat identity crisis. These guys attempted to make a smooth and fruity cocktail of an album, but they didn't quite mix it properly, so it's just a hodgepodge of ingredients that kind of just sit in the glass. Again, I don't want to be too harsh. This is the band's full-length debut, and they are still kind of a new act. Of course, they don't have themselves figured out yet, and even though this is a messy record, there's enough charming stuff in here for me to give it a slight, if not enthusiastic, recommendation. Look up their singles. If you like what you hear, there might be something here for you. But just know that you probably aren't going to get everything that was advertised up front. Just saying. This one's a little deceptive, but what's good is pretty decent. Esoteric Hobbies gets 3 chunky milkshakes out of 5. Okay, people, so I ran into a little dilemma with this one. This band I'm about to talk about has no live footage at all. Like, I'm not even sure they're a band that plays live shows. Look, I did as much Google foo as I could, but there's just no live footage of this band out there. So I'm at kind of a weird place, but let me try something a little new for you. So warmrain, not to be confused with cold rain, was the first joke I obviously made. Is it also weird that both bands do that all lowercase stylizing with their logos? Should someone be suing? I almost feel like someone should be suing. Warmrain are a prog rock outfit out of the UK that released their first full-length album this year. In fact, their Facebook goes on to describe them as a quintessentially English melodic art prog rock band. And you know what? I would say that description is extremely apt. You know who else was a quintessentially English prog rock band? Pink Floyd. Like, goddamn, people. To say these guys were influenced by Pink Floyd is to say that my fat ass used to be influenced by cheeseburgers. I'm getting better about that, though. You know? Check that out. It's very progressive, but in that extremely soothing, mellow, chill kind of way. I mean, their name is Warmrain, for God's sake. You know this isn't going to be Seasons in the Abyss, but I don't know, maybe Pink Floyd isn't exactly the perfect descriptor for their sound here. Like, there is definitely a Pink Floyd influence, but it's a certain kind of Floyd influence. This is more later Pink Floyd, or the Pink Floyd that was specifically driven by David Gilmour's kind of Floyd style. If you kind of feel what I'm getting at here, like, just by listening to this one album alone, you can not only tell that these boys love their Floyd, they definitely have a favorite member. And if you are a big David Gilmour fan, I say go for it. Like, this is about as close as you can get without just going out and picking up a David Gilmour album or something. But speaking as a guy who's more of a Roger Waters kind of Floyd fan, I mean, I did still dig this overall. I'd say I even dig this more than a lot of the later Pink Floyd and David Gilmour solo stuff that's out there, so credit where it's due there. But this kind of sound does still retain a lot of the issues that I have with that stripe of, Floyd worship. It's so soft and so pillowy and so lethargic, it almost puts me to sleep. And you people don't pay me to sleep. At least not until I can get that tax exempt. Like, this thing is just a great big pile of David Gilmour standing. I gotta admit, it's pretty derivative, and the question I always ask myself when I'm dealing with an act that draws heavy influence is, why would I listen to this when I could just as easily go out and listen to the thing that it's borrowing so much from? And while Warmrain is definitely a talented group, I don't necessarily have a good answer to that particular question here. It's extremely derivative. Not to a full-blown plagiaristic degree, but man, I don't know. I just could not stop hearing things in this music I shouldn't be hearing because, it's not meant to be Pink Floyd. It's not meant to be David Gilmour, but wow, is the influence just inescapable here. Like, even to those of you that are hardcore for that kind of Floyd, that may be something that turns you off from it. It is just borrowing so much from that style. Another thing that might turn you away from this album is the goddamn insufferable length. 1 hour and 32 minutes. I shit thee not, people. Like, look, people, I've said it before. I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it till the end of time. No matter how much you love something, adore something, too much of it can be a bad thing. If you like cheeseburgers, for example, eating 20 of them in one sitting is only going to leave you extremely fucking sick. I should know. I mean, at the end of the day, these guys are very talented, and there is a lot of good stuff on display here. It is a very proficient and well-played album, and it's not bereft of original ideas, but it is only going to appeal to a certain niche. It's just not going to be everyone's kind of thing, and even if it is your thing, you really gotta want a lot of that thing, It's not an album without charm, but my God, some of the hurdles you have to jump over to get something out of this record are unappealing. But there's promise there, there's potential. I'd love to see what these guys could do if they were a little more original and just chilled the fuck out. Like, chill, boys. Just like, I know you're enthusiastic, but please, man, I ain't got an hour and a half to devote to this kind of shit. Fuck. Back Above the Clouds gets 3 cheeseburgers out of 5. How'd you feel about this format, eh? Let me know in the comments.
Oh man, all these dozy, sleepy records. Are you people trying to put me to sleep intentionally? Just, come on, give me something with some energy. Okay, now y'all are just fucking with me. Like, even as someone who's known for not staying within his jurisdiction.
Yeah, no, they get it. Just chill, dude.
This feels almost completely out of my wheelhouse. But, well, again, like I mentioned with Sleep Token, a genre that I do really enjoy outside of the typical rock and metal spheres is electropop. Particularly that mellow, serene, and ambient kind of electropop. And Vancouver Sleep Clinic is definitely bringing out some of that lucid, atmospheric goodness.
I can see why my requester sent this my way. If I could describe this music in one word, it would be dreamy. Like I almost had to check that this music wasn't actually released by an actual Vancouver sleep clinic, because it is very effective at delivering a blissful and intoxicatingly peaceful experience. It's a smooth, almost numbing kind of sound that doesn't so much wash over you as gently and slowly overtake you with time, like you're sitting in a bathtub while it slowly fills with water, inch by inch. It's a sound that absolutely envelops you across 45 minutes. If you're looking for something sleepy and ethereal, this album is very good at delivering that particular sensation. In fact, it may be a little too good at it. Yeah, see, I'd say that's a major problem with albums in this genre. The line between relaxing and sleep-inducing is a very fine one, and it's hard to walk. If you aren't careful, your record does have the ability to take the listener straight from to and you don't want, at least not for review purposes. And I'd say this album has a few moments where it was too heavy on the Z's instead of the A's, if you get what I mean. And if this genre isn't something you're into, then I really don't think this one will be a game changer for you, but it certainly has its moments, and it's worth a look if it sounds interesting to you, or if you need help getting to sleep. Again, should I really be docking points for that though? I mean, it is in their name, for God's sake. I don't know. Onward design gets 3.5 counted sheep out of 5. How about we switch to something that'll wake you the fuck back up? Y'all like symphonic metal? Well, here's Gloryhammer. Again, like, I could probably just show you the cover to this one and you'd already know everything you need to know about it. But our teachers always told us never to judge a book by its cover, so I listened to the album too. Though after hearing it, I can tell you that, well, on some occasions our teachers were wrong. You can totally judge this book by its cover. This is symphonic metal with a fairly big emphasis on the symphonic part, like really big. Maybe not quite to a Flesh God Apocalypse level, but you can tell just by listening to it that one of the biggest artists that influenced these heavy metal, hard rockin' dudes was John Williams. Yeah, strings, horns, opulent choirs, the works. When these guys talk about opening up the pit, they mean the orchestra pit. Timpani up your ass, motherfuckers! But they aren't like straight up symphonic. They're a certain type of metal. How about I put it this way? The band was founded by keyboardist Christopher Bose. If that name sounds slightly familiar, it's because when Chris isn't beat booping for these guys, he's yo-ho-hoing it as the lead vocalist for Ailstorm. Yeah, you get what's going on here now, right? These lads are taking the piss. It's like overly opulent, melodramatic to the point of near parody, and just barrels upon barrels of the finest aged cheese. This is some cheese metal of the cheesiest degree. If you melted the CD over macaroni, it would make a delicious lunch. This album is so cheesy, I honestly don't think I can recommend it to you if you're vegan, but you know me, I've never had anything against cheesy music. Cheesy music can be a lot of fun, and these guys, they can play, they can perform, they're committed to all the goofiness they're doing, so yeah, I got nothing against this. Hell, it might be a legit jam for those of you looking up to shine up a broadsword or two, but on that same coin, I've heard cheesier and I've heard better this year. This is a decent cheese though, so if you're not lactose intolerant, feel free to dig in. Legends from Beyond the Galactic Terrorvortex, oh god, that name alone, gets 3.5 bowls of Velveeta out of 5. Swallow the Sun. I got a fair amount of requests for this one, and yeah, it's fine. Oh god, now I'm recycling jokes too. damn it. But look, I have to admit, my frustrations with this are a bit more my own. Swallow the Sun are a Finnish death metal band that tend to lay super heavy on the doomy and gothic sides of the genre. This is some of that deep, dark stuff that, while being sinister and foreboding, does have a unique and carefully crafted sense of melody to it. It's got all the darker and heavier distortions you'd expect from a death metal record, with plenty of pig-squealed vocals when the moment calls for it. But they also aren't afraid to bring in some clean singing and some cleaner melodies and guitar tones here or there. The occasional synth piece also is brought in to add just a little bit of variety and color to the sound. It's pretty decently executed. It's heavy, but also swooning and swaying in a manner that's both discomforting and comforting at the same time. Points for that, I guess, but given my introduction, I'm obviously not too terribly warm on this, so what's my problem? What? I mean it. Something about this record, as much as I can respect it, I just can't really get into it. It's that girl in your friend group who's really into you, and while she's perfectly nice, if not a little spoopy, you just don't quite feel the same way about her that she feels about you, and man, there just isn't much of a wow factor to this band. It's pleasant enough. I did enjoy the time I spent with it. I don't feel like this was a waste of time. It's certainly not a bad album. There's some great performances and production on this thing, but nothing really stood out. Nothing on it demanded my attention. There was lots of proficiency, but not a lot of, excellence. Nothing really came out, grabbed me by the lapels, and just sold me on it. It's not an explosive record, or even one that's mixing up too many formulas or anything. It's there, and it's good, but I don't know, it just kind of exists. Like I said up top, it's fine, but it's kind of all it is. God, I feel like I've had to say this particular phrase a lot in this episode, but if this sounds like something that might be up your alley, give it a shot. But me, I'm sorry, I just wasn't bowled over or anything. It could be just that this year has given us so many wonderful records across so many different genres that being basically fine and functional doesn't cut the mustard by comparison. But there isn't anything particularly bad about this album either, so hey, give it a shot. This might be a sun worth swallowing. When a shadow is forced into the light gets 3.5 let's just be friends out of 5. Oh, hey, The Devil Wears Prada is still around? Oh, wow. I haven't thought about these guys in a hot minute. These guys were a super big deal when I was in college, but I went to a weirdo Christian college, so I don't know, maybe that was just me. But yeah, when the Christian metalcore scene started to rise up in the mid-2000s, you know, guys like Underoath, Bless the Fall, Norma Jean, these guys were always talked about as well, and for good reason. A lot of their stuff was pretty wicked. They were really heavy and relentless, but they also didn't take themselves too seriously. It was a nice little jam they had going on. It was about as close as a sheltered Christian kid could get to something like Black Dahlia Murder without having their precious soul corrupted by Satan or whatever.
Oh, my freaking ear!
It was good for what it was. But I have to admit, I lost track of these guys after college. They kept trucking along though, and 13 years later, here we are with The Act. So is this album going to provide a groovy, nostalgic throwback, or is it a grim reminder that my musical taste 13 years ago was woefully, woefully dire? Well, neither. Honestly, this record stands up fairly decently on its own. I have to admit, I haven't been keeping tabs on this band, and I didn't go back and listen to a lot of the stuff I missed prior to this record. Yeah, eat me. So I don't know if this is something they've been doing for a while or anything, but based off of what I heard here, on its own merits, yeah, this album's pretty catchy. These guys sound like they've kind of pivoted away from the pure, crazy chaos they were rooted in previously and have gotten a bit more proficient with melody and structure. Like, this album is surprisingly hooky. These guys have streamlined their sound a lot over the years, and they did it without trading in their identity to be more generic and palatable. It still sounds like The Devil Wears Prada, only they've taken on some more traditional song structuring patterns and have been able to implement them into their sound very effectively. And, I mean, the crazier part of their sound isn't completely absent either. This album still has plenty of off-the-rails moments, but it is very reassuring to see that even when this band does decide to connect to the rails, they can still deliver. That takes real talent to pull off effectively, and I'll be damned if they don't have it. This probably isn't like an Album of the Year candidate for me, but I was pleasantly surprised by this. And if you need a good metalcore jam, yeah, I can point you toward this. Good stuff. The act gets 4 acts out of a 5-act play.